Hi, it's me again with Corel Draw Tips and Tricks. And somebody sent me this file and they want to cut this out on a plasma cutter with 2 layers. So the first thing I'm going to do is make a duplicate of it. I'm going to take this with it selected. That's a big deal. Got to have it selected. Use the crop tool and let's crop out the text. It's almost like a handwriting. Just say crop. Now, they did say that it was going to be like 30 by 10. So with my ratio lock, I'm going to go, I think it was 30.25. But before we do that, let's trace it. So I think it helps Corel figure that out. So we're going to take it and we're just going to, it's all one package or one piece. I'm going to go to Trace Bitmap, Outline, Trace Clip Art, which I use 99% of the time, and it's already done it. Now we're going to move this out of the way. I'm going to bring in a box and color it yellow, go up to Arrange, order back a page, and you can see that there are some white marks. So click on your object, go up to Arrange and Group and Ungroup, and then get rid of the white or gray inner matter. Now this is not a group anymore. So what we can do is group it together, Control G, and now we can make it that 30.25. Now he said something about 30 by 10, but I'm just going to go with that normally. I'm going to go left click, right click. And before I start contour, he wants 2 layers, I would fix some things. So with the smoothing tool, set on like, well, let's set it a little bit bigger than that, like maybe a 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch. Grab that. Well, what we're going to have to do is go up here and go to Range and ungroup it. Now let's get the smoothing tool. And I would smooth out those nodes, especially in a plasma cutter. And also because of the fact that we're going to contour, any little fault in the, like right there in the contour is going to be detrimental. It's going to, the contour will really show it up. And then you can decide whether you want that or not. I'm not going to go over the whole thing, but normally, you know, we might want that sharpness, but not, maybe not quite that much, especially on the inside cuts. You've got to have it selected. Your nodes will show up. And like right here, just kind of round off that corner a little bit. Just kind of round off. Once you've got the item selected, you don't have to select it. It's still selected. And then just, let's make our nudge or nib a little bit bigger. And just take out some of those sharp edges. More so probably on the inside. A little bit on the outside. Because I almost want to leave a couple just to kind of show you what the contour tool will do to it. But just give it some rounded corners. If you're doing laser engraving, this isn't that big a deal, but when you're doing, so I don't know how much he wants to contour, but we got to group it back together, Control G. Let's go ahead and get rid of all this, and let's put P and put it in the center of the page. And now let's go to Effects and Contour. Let's say he's going to contour just a 1/2 inch, and I'm going to use rounded corners, and it's going to look like that. So I was able to get rid of some of those bad spots. Now, he did say it was going to be 2 layers, so let's go to Arrange, Group, and we'll select it all, go to Arrange and break the contour apart. That's less than 6 inches. 8's fine. Let's take this and move it down. Now, this is where you want to, do you want that hole? Which I probably would. If you don't want that hole, you can take the virtual segment delete key and delete that hole if you want that to be solid. Now, even at this size, we'll get out the parallel dimension tool. That's an 1/8 of an inch thick. That's not very thick for a plasma cutter. I'm afraid it's going to burn it up. Now I moved it, so I'm going to move it back. So what my suggestion would be, let's contour the outside like 0.02 first. And a little bit more. Let's go 0.05. And what that's doing is it making those letters that much thicker. Now you can definitely tell, well, I'm using rounded corners, so it works. But we're going to go to arrange to break the contour apart. Try to grab the inside and move it out of the way. And so now we have a thicker line. We're not much thicker. You could play with that, but you don't want to alter the handwriting too much. But if you look now, we're almost 1/4 of an inch, which is still pretty thin. Now, one thing we need to do is we've taken away the part of the E, so I'm going to just delete that. Because I nudged, I can take my Smart Fill tool and fill that in and move it, nudge it down, and then I'm going to left click, right click, and that's a pretty little cut on a plasma cutter, but everything else looks okay. Now what I would do is I'd probably recontour this. I'm going to group it together, Control G. Let's contour that 1/2 inch, 0.5, to the outside with rounded corners. And then that might be too much, but go to arrange, break contour apart, grab that contour and nudge it down. And once again, you could either leave that whole. So let's do this. Let's, this is the way you'd want to turn it into the plasma cutter, but let's see what it's going to look like. Let's turn it into black. Let's take away the outline. Let's take this into a light color and let's take away the outline. Let's put it up top. That's what it's going to look like in 2 different colored metals anyway. It's still thin for a plasma cutter, and I actually lost my circle there inside the, because I turned it black. So what you're, that's why you'd want to turn it to the plasma cutter after you turn it into a DXF. But we can, let me change that to black because it won't fill that in. Let's go up here and take away the outline, right clicking. Let's just make this a brown, nope, orange. That's what it's going to look like if you're going to do 2 layers. And if he stands it off, it's going to be really hard to stand off with just a 1/4 of an inch of material. And for the one I'm doing it for, if you need help, more help, just holler at me. Hope that helped. Thank you for watching.